No sugarcoat play. Headlines hot and the coffee's black. If the story's wild, we're firing back. Trailers, rumors, industry flame. If it's blowing up, we're naming names. From box office bombs to streaming decay. If it dropped overnight, we're roasting it today. No script, no filter, no corporate spin. Just hit record, let the chaos begin. Wake up the empire, it's morning time. Marv and Lorn on the headline grind. If the culture's burning, we're fanning the fire. Breaking it down on M4cast AM. Wake up the empire, grab that brew. Real talk mornings coming through. No fluff, no lies, no fake out scam. You're live with the crew on M4cast AM. From Disney drama to gaming fights, from midnight drops to viral bites. If Twitter melts while you're asleep, we're digging receipts and diving deep. Laughing loud, but the points hit hard. Truth bombs flying before your yard. Before the meetings, before the grind, we reset the culture, state of mind. Chat rolls in, the takes get wild. Half awake with the heat styled. Hot mic jokes and caffeine fuel. Morning mayhem, that's the rule. Wake up the empire, it's morning time. Marv and Lorn on the headline grind. If the culture's burning, we're fanning the fire. Breaking it down on M4cast AM. Why the empire? Grab that brew. Real talk mornings coming through. No fluff, no lies, no fake out scam. You're live with the crew on M4cast AM. 2 mics, 1 mission. No corporate leash, full ignition. From trending clips to industry schemes, we pull back curtains behind the screens. If it's cringe, we say it. If it's hype, we weigh it. If it's fake, we torch it live. Because the empire wakes at sunrise. Wake up the empire, lights are on. Another wild news cycle dawns. From breaking leaks to satire, we run the board on M4cast the empire. Wake up the empire, hear that jam. Your morning crew, Marv and Lorn stand. No better way to start the program than wake it up with M4cast the AM. M4cast the M4 Empire. We are the M4 Empire.
Oh my goodness. What do you hear? What do you say? M4 Empire. Welcome to M4cast AM. I'm Marvin Movie Monster Montanaro, and I am joined by my great friend. I was going to let you introduce yourself, but Lorn Connor.
It would be weird if I introduced myself as your great friend. That would be presumptuous.
I know. I forgot your name. It's all right.
Par for the course.
Because I need these name tags in place. I didn't have them there. No, yeah. My good friend, what's his name over here? Lorn, how are you this morning?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. You know, I was having a thought about this show. I wanted to voice it aloud to the audience to see what they thought about it because, and by the way, welcome to everyone coming over from Culture Casino right now. I was thinking about whether or not we should be covering like news, or whether we should be doing more like lore deep dives that you and I can't really get into on Lorn and Apollo or on the M4 cast because, you know, we have other co-hosts that, you know, don't exactly dive into these things as deeply as you and I do. Or maybe we could do a mix of the two, like the first 30 minutes we dive into a news topic and then we dive into something lore related.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't-
I think it's a cool idea. I think that I think what was it? My days are running together. I guess it was last Friday on the Lord and Apollo show. We kind of did something similar
We
because
did.
we were so light on people, and it was a lot of fun. I think it
Yeah,
went
that's
really
what
well.
actually gave me the idea, was because I was like, wow, that was a lot of fun. So yeah, we have got there's so much is going on in Hollywood right now, but the biggest story right now going, Lauren, is the WB sale right now. New things dropping seemingly every hour about it. I think we might actually be nearing a conclusion to this, and oh man, I can't wait to have this be like over and done with so I don't have to write about it anymore. You have no idea how tired I am of putting pictures and articles of David Ellison.
Yeah, I get it. It's everybody's been talking about it, and I know it gets tedious to talk about it, but I've actually been kind of enjoying this story because it's so messy and it
Mm.
exposes, I think, a lot of the corruption that takes place in these kind of deals. This should be embarrassing for all parties involved. Uh, and honestly, I don't blame the Ellisons for being pissed off. It seems to me that WBD has been playing a pretty crooked game here, and
So I had this thought the other day. What if this has all been an elaborate plot to squeeze more money out of the Ellisons?
well,
What
I,
if
honestly,
the Ellisons came to the table with $19 a share, and WB was like, so then Zaslav goes to Ted Sarandos and goes, look, if you say that you're getting into the game here, then we could not only get this guy up over $30 a share, but we could put in a break fee that'll have him pay you $3 billion.
yeah,
Because like,
it's not a new theory, but I think there's a couple of things to keep in mind. One is that you got to be really careful if you're going to do something like that, because if you put anything in writing, that is going to
mhm,
come out. The other thing, and this has been the most fascinating thing about this to me, I had predicted that there was going to be one more sweetener offered by WBD because that made sense to me. It's like they had already put in the safeguards to where we'll pay you every quarter that this deal is not concluded if it goes beyond the end of this year, and that was a
right.
pretty big deal.
It
It
was.
seemed to me that making one more up to the share price would be the one thing that the shareholders absolutely could not ignore. At that point, they're going to start putting real pressure on Zaslav, and that's what they've done. But I think Netflix may be regretting whatever it is that their strategy has been at this point because
Oh,
their stock
absolutely.
price has dropped so much, and it's obvious that it is because of the prolonged nature of this deal coming to a conclusion. And I think the problem that they face now is that if they do not acquire WBD, this could go either way. Their stock could go back up, or it could go even further down because they failed. And
Yeah,
if
their
that's the
stock has
case,
not. Yeah, their stock has been like redlining this week, which has been insane to see.
yeah,
Um,
and I feel like the main reason that they wanted WBD was one, there's the possibility of killing theatrical so that everything goes to streaming, which would be advantageous to Netflix. But the other
mhm.
thing is they want the IPs that WBD holds. And if they fail to capture that, they'll be left holding nothing. They've got their own stuff, but their own stuff, they produce, let's say, 80% stuff that nobody watches, 20% that the people get really excited about.
Well, and so now what we're also starting to see, Lauren, is they're starting to they're bringing more of like the Netflix ideology stuff into the public eye now, because now you're getting senators and congressmen who are pointing the finger at them and just being like, hey, why does 60% of your preschool content have LGBT stuff in it? So they're being asked questions that they probably didn't want to be asked. And if this does go to anti-regulation, they're gonna do some deep dives into Netflix's actual like internal communications and things like that. And I think that that's gonna be bad for Netflix. But I don't know. Maybe they're running a very clean ship. It just doesn't seem like it. But first, let's have a look at what our audience is saying, guys. We do count on your generous super chats to keep the lights on here in the Empire. So please send in your super chats. If you send in $50 or more, we do take a break from whatever we're doing to talk about what you want to talk about. So let's dive in right now to what you guys are talking about. OG Dutchie, just a Dutchie, remember for 4 months, says, watching on the big screen. Finally, some good TV. Oh, I like that. I like that we're on someone's TV right now. I'm really curious. How many of you guys watch like on a mobile device or on a computer or on a TV? I am actually like really curious about that. You know what? I actually think I'm going to start a poll in the chat about that, because that actually is something that I really want to know. Let's see. Start a poll. How do you watch this show? Mobile, TV, computer, tablet, and start poll. Yeah, I really want to see what people are going to answer on that.
When we're watching the various channels that we're all on, I actually do all of the above. You know, it really depends on where I'm at. Obviously,
Yeah.
right now we're recording, so we're on a computer.
Right.
But my preference actually is to watch on the TV when possible, because
Me
then I
too.
can do stuff in the background, you know?
Yeah, like when I go through like, G&G stuff that I'm not on, or like Friday Night Tights, things like that, I always watch that on the TV. Pro shows that I'm not on, if I pop that on, I'll watch it on the TV as well. So yeah, but irate specialist checking in for $4.99 saying UK extending Ofcom regulations to streaming services, possibly extending UK censorship to US streamers. Thoughts? Now, I saw a headline about this. I have not looked into it yet. I'm not really 100% on what Ofcom is.
That is the UK basically regulation on speech, and what they have been doing is this is the mechanism that they're using to have officers visit people for having wrong speech or wrong think.
Oh, okay.
But
Right.
it's also
It's
the
the
mechanism.
fascism that they're actually, while
It's
calling
also
other
the
countries fascist.
it's also the mechanism that they're using to fine companies that are not based within the UK, but for not complying with regulations that they have within their borders. And so this
Mhm.
is how they're trying to export their laws, basically through financial pain to corporations that are not within their jurisdiction.
That is evil and a half. My gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would not be good. Like, I do not want UK censors here. It's so funny. UK censors, they'll police your speech, but they'll put in all of the divisive content possible. We've all seen what the BBC has squirted out over the last few years. It's been absolutely terrible.
I
But
honestly think the only way to combat this is to do basically the reverse card. It's like they're threatening, we're going to fine you for every day that you don't comply with our speech laws. And
mhm.
they're also threatening to not allow the services within their borders if they don't comply. It's like, take them up on that bet. It's like, all right, you don't want my services? Then we're not
Mhm.
going to provide them. And let's see how your taxpayers feel about that.
Right, exactly. And all the taxpayers who literally pay for the BBC and have no choice.
Yep.
To Neil the 10th for $5 as well. So long, CNN. Hope you burn in hell. I mean, I wish you well. Maybe they should just change their name back to Pravda. Yeah, well, that is the thing. If the Ellisons do get their hands on CNN, I mean, it will still likely be CNN, but it will be a radically different CNN. I mean, I'm pretty sure Barry Weiss will be in charge of it, and it will change completely. You'll probably see them gut the staff from the top down, because there's no way that these crazed activists who serve as anchors and on-air personalities for CNN are going to actually stand for any of it. So I don't know. What do you think, Lauren? Do you think we've seen the last of CNN in its current form?
Well, I don't know. A lot is riding on this deal. This is a big part of why I think the Ellisons want WBD, is besides the IP, is they want to get their hands into balancing out the news. Let's put it that way.
Hmm.
But CNN's viewership has been dropping regularly. I mean, they have plummeted in the last few years. And so the first question is, if you do get them, what is the value that's actually being brought to the table?
Right.
Uh, the second is, okay, suppose that the Ellisons do capture it and they do try and at least balance the news a little bit. When you get through cleaning through people and making sure that you have staffed it with people who are trying to play it a little more safe, is it still CNN? You run into the ship enthusiast problem,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
like, at what point it's no longer CNN?
Well, I mean, we've heard rumor for a while that Zaslav had wanted to radically change CNN, that he wanted to come in and change the way it does things, wanted to make it a more centrist outlet. And then he was told when he took over that under no circumstances was he allowed to do that. And he was
Yep.
told that by, people who are, well, hold on 1 second. Pro is calling me, and I'm just like, I'm on the pre-show right now. You know this. But yeah,
Breaking
so
news.
I have no idea. Do you want to vamp for a second so I can call him back?
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
So, talking about the CNN situation, it's like I think that the Ellisons have a valid point in trying to rebalance the news. All of the networks have been captured, and right now, new media, like what we're doing here, is kind of eating old media's lunch. I think a real question that comes into play here is kind of what Marvin was just talking about. If you have entrenched interests that are essentially saying that they have enough power to resist what management wants, how do you continue to run that organization? And one of the answers may be, if you can't reorganize it, maybe you don't. If they're not profitable, maybe you just shut it down. Now, that would be kind of an earthquake in the media realm, but it also gives you the opportunity to then start something brand new. Now, I don't know if they have the reach or the ability to um, steal talent away from other places that may be amenable to that kind of thing, but maybe that's another way you look at it, is that fine, if you think that you are above the people who pay your paychecks, that you can just deny what they want, maybe we educate you on how business works.
Absolutely. This has been the Lorne Connor filibuster, ladies and gentlemen.
How'd I do?
You did good. You did good. It was a website thing. He needed me to. He's writing an article that he wanted to make sure that I was going to see and get up
Yep.
before the end of the pro show because he wants to cover it. So, yep, that will definitely happen. Tennille the 10th for $2 couldn't happen to a nicer bunch of douche canoes. I'll say it. I don't care. We're PG-13. iRate specialist for 199. Power to the 199 says BBC iPlayer is exempt from these regulations. Oh well, that's just.
And
That's
it
just
makes perfect
super
sense
corrupt.
considering.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I mean, considering that the taxpayers are forced to pay for BBC, they consider that a government outlet. How do you
Oh, yeah.
regulate us?
Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And Justin Dutchy checking in for $5.99 in euros says, I normally join via mobile or laptop, but my TV was gathering dust, so I decided to watch on TV. I still have my iPhone handy for chatting and super chats. Well, we appreciate all of the chatting and super chats, Justin Dutchy. We just appreciate having you here. So thank you guys so very much. A lot of generosity happening in the chat here today. We are going to talk about our featured topic here in a second, but remember, guys, we do break for $50 or more. So if you send in something big, we will stop to talk about it. Let's see. Nope, not Nick Reiner. That's not what we're talking about.
Gosh, I hope not. That's a dark story.
Yeah. So I had to write 2 articles about it over the last 2 days because he pled not guilty yesterday. And then today, the New York Post. I remember when his attorney just like randomly like left, and he got left with a public defender.
Yeah, I recall that. And
Yeah,
I'm surprised.
basically what happened, what the New York Post is saying happened is exactly what everyone said happened, which is that they were, his siblings cut him off
Yeah, he's
financially.
got no money. They
Yeah,
can't afford representation.
yeah. So that would really sting if he was trying to defend himself from killing his parents with his parents' money.
Yeah.
So.
And you got to wonder. I mean, he's pleading not guilty. He's got to be going for the insanity plea, but I don't know
That
how.
is so hard to get. I mean, look, if there's any place that would give that plea to the child of a celebrity, it's California, it's Los Angeles.
Yep.
but that is a hard plea to get. And so they're actually talking about seeking the death penalty for him, which would
Well,
be highly ironic given Rob Reiner being so like vociferously opposed to the death penalty.
yeah, but the thing is that I mean, I mean, obviously we're not attorneys, but I think there's ample evidence to show that this was premeditated. You know, he took steps, and I think that that's going to be awful hard to try and knock down unless they somehow claim that some evidence was seized improperly. I think that's the only way
Mhm.
you could try and run that case.
Probably. Um, so but I think what the prosecutor said was that when seeking the death penalty, they were going to consult the family, and I think that the Reiner siblings have said they don't want that. So you
Yeah,
know,
I mean, the whole thing's a tragedy. It's
I,
just a tragedy.
well, so I mean, from my opinion on the death penalty is I actually think jail is worse. Like I think like early death is the way out.
I don't.
Um,
I,
if I was faced with life in prison or death, I would be like death.
I,
Just end it. I'm not living
I,
like that.
I I don't think so. I think a lot of them figure that at some point that there's going to be an opportunity to go before a parole board. There's going to be some way that they'll reduce their sentence. There's so many sentences get reduced at this point that it's like it's almost a revolving door.
Yeah.
So I
Well, Chris Rock was talking about how messed up jails were, and he was talking about the things that, inmates make other inmates do. And he was like, if I had a choice between that and the electric chair, I'd be like, where you plug it in?
Yeah, I had a friend that spent some time in some pretty nasty prisons, and he told me a few things. It's like don't want to go there. I think I'm just going to stay on the straight and narrow as much as I
Mhm.
can.
Lauren had a friend who was in prison, guys.
Yeah, wait till I show you my prison tat.
I always, you cover up that teardrop that you have on your face. But let's talk about Paramount a little bit here, guys, because, oh, I see. Okay. Paramount Skydance has issued a new bid, supposedly, Warner Brothers Discovery to review while still backing the Netflix deal. Now, it's important to note that they're still backing the Netflix deal because they have to back the Netflix deal. Like legally, they have to because the deal is still accepted and on the table. So Paramount Skydance has reportedly made a new improved bid to purchase Warner Bros. Discovery. The exact amount of the bid is unknown as of press time, according to Deadline. They are once again at the center of a high-stakes media battle as the company prepares to review this fresh offer from Paramount Skydance, even while formally recommending its existing agreement with Netflix to shareholders. Now, this new report from Variety states that Warner Bros. Discovery's board is expected to inform investors that it will examine the latest bid from Skydance ahead of the March 20th shareholder vote on the Netflix transaction. The situation puts the Paramount Warner Brothers drama back in the spotlight as multiple media giants jockey for control of key entertainment assets. Now, Warner Brothers Discovery is currently bound to a signed agreement with Netflix valued at nearly $83 billion. Under that deal, Netflix would acquire Warner Brothers Studio. We know all of this. However, Paramount has reportedly put forward a much larger offer for the entirety of Warner Bros. Discovery, including its cable assets. The company's recent bid of $30 per share was valued at around $108 billion. But Lauren, the rumors out of Wall Street are that this new bid that they put forward is upwards of $32 per share.
Yeah, they actually bid more than I expected them to.
Mhm.
I thought they were going to offer a sweetener, but I figured it was going to be minor just to appease the shareholders that you're saying, fine, we're not valuing the linear assets appropriately. It's like we'll give you this gimme to kind of save face and say, fine, we've given you a little bit more. Two
Right.
bucks is not insignificant. That
No.
that is actually a pretty big deal. And I'll bet Netflix is looking at that and going, too rich for our blood.
You know what? And here's what Netflix had to say, and this is the really interesting thing about it. Netflix co-CEO Ted Sarandos previously signaled that the company may not be getting into a bidding war, telling Variety that the streamer has a rich history of being willing to walk away and let someone else overpay for things.
Yeah, and I think part of the problem here is that their stock has taken such a hit. We were talking about this last night. It's like
Mhm.
it's getting harder for them to counter because they don't have as much money as they had just a few months ago.
Well, let's take a look right here. Over the last 5 days, the stock is down 1.02%, or just went up a little bit. But we saw like right here on Friday, it just crashed, dropped like $2. And now this is a stock, Lauren, that was doing so well recently that they had to split it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the things that I think has caused this crash, you said it was Friday, right?
Yeah.
Because there was it was the Susan Rice comments, I think, because that introduced it's like you are basically taunting the administration that it has
Oh,
to approve this deal. That's a really bad idea. Now, I think it was probably a bad idea for Trump to also demand that they fire Susan Rice from the board.
well,
That
look.
also doesn't look good.
I mean,
But
look, I think a lot of times Trump is his own worst enemy with the way that he words things on social media. When he was like, "Get rid of her or pay the consequences," I was like, "Dude, what are you doing? Like, why are
yeah,
you threatening companies like this with terminology like that?" I don't think like I don't think that was wise. But then it was also not wise for Sarandos to basically call him out and just be like, well, he says a lot of things on social media, but this is a business deal, not a politics deal. And I was just like, oh boy, oh, you just poked the bear.
Actually, I thought Sarandos's comments were probably the smartest thing he could have done because he was trying to downplay it and say, look, he did not, importantly, I think, attack the regulatory bodies that are going to be looking at this. He's
Mm,
just saying, look, he's just saying stuff. And I think he was trying to give some cover to Susan Rice as well. Now, the Susan Rice thing is kind of a mask off moment because we know, obviously, because Susan Rice was integral to both the Obama and the Biden administrations, she's saying what they intend to do should they get back into power. However, she's not a politician anymore. She's a person on a board of an entertainment company. And so her coming out and saying that is a really foolish thing to do because you can bet if the Democrats do take power in the future, she'll be right back in any administration. And
oh yeah,
this will be on the record for you said you would do what now?
yeah, yeah. It's been that was not smart of her. And honestly, Netflix probably should have gotten rid of her, to be honest.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think that may be part of why you're seeing this drop here is that nothing was done about that. And so I'm real curious. It looks like there's been another bump this morning. That's kind of interesting
yeah.
because I wonder if that signals that people are anticipating that they're not going to get WBD and they're seeing that as a positive.
That was
Al-
10:30 a.m. this morning, went up from 75.57 to 76.08. I'm sorry, 76.94. That's actually a pretty big bump. That's like a buck and a half almost.
Now, what I'm curious to see is what is WBD stock doing? Because I think what this may be signaling is that the market is not in favor of Netflix getting it because they're worried about the theatrical market overall. They don't want to see the theater market collapse. And so this may be a positive for all parties involved.
Hold on, I'm looking up the stock for all three of them right now. Um, this is interesting. So let's have a look here. Paramount Skydance's stock has also crashed. So we've seen over the last 5 days, it's down like 2.8%. So I mean that it went from, looks like a high of 1117 on Wednesday to down to about 1053. But then, Lorne, when you look at the WBD stock, this is what I think is very interesting. It's
It's going to
up
be doing very well.
it's up 0.87%. Look at this.
Now, this doesn't surprise me, and it's because they keep upping the bidding. It's like it's whoever gets this, no matter who it is, they're overpaying. Everybody knows they're overpaying. So I think WBD comes out of this looking good no matter what, pretty much. The way I'm reading this just off the cuff is that I think people don't want Netflix to get it, but they're also not happy that the Ellisons might. And so those people that are maybe leaning more towards the liberal side of the aisle, they may be selling their Paramount stock because they're not happy that the Ellisons may come into control of CNN and those
Well,
assets.
I mean, I think everybody has kind of like a lot of people have said, I know Tom Connors, I mean, it's interested in, I've said it. The best option here is nobody buys it and it just stays Warner Brothers and just continues on the way it was supposed to continue on, because Warner Brothers just had a really good year. Like because Warner Brothers switched its strategy, fewer blockbusters, and it was sticking to low budget horror films that were killing it at the box office. Remember earlier this year, they set that record. I think it was like 7 movies opening over $40 million in a row consecutively. It was like the first studio ever to do that.
Yep. But I think two things are going to be a wrinkle in the future. One is what's going to happen with James Gunn's DC universe, and the other is what's going to happen with Harry Potter. How is that going to be received? Because they've made an awful big gamble on that.
They really have. I mean, I can imagine this show is not very cheap to make. I don't think it's like Rings of Power expensive, but it's got to be pretty expensive. And literally everything that comes out about it, like everything they say, like they started off with John Lithgow as Dumbledore, and everybody was like, "Whoa, right on! That's really good casting. That's great." And then they were like, and then every announcement thereafter, everybody was like, "Oh no." Like now they're saying they're going to add more to the story. Like they're going to like give you things that weren't in the books. I'm like, nobody wants that. Everybody just wants what was in the books.
Yeah, and the thing is, they're committed to this thing for multiple years. I mean, they're talking
Decades.
about, yeah, and that's a big bet. I mean, more power to them if they can pull it off. But if they don't, it will be a Rings of Power kind of situation where you've turned off the audience that should be the ones supporting you, and
It'll be worse than Rings of Power because Rings of Power is only 5 seasons and pretty much doing once a year. So I think that, and I think that everybody has kind of already written once they announced Papa Sidu as Snape, everybody was out. I mean, that's where Trish was out, I know. And Trish is one of the biggest Potter fans that I know. The second that happened, she was done. And you basically said to me, like, yeah, at this point, cast a lady as Voldemort. I don't care. Like let's see how deep the rabbit hole can go. How bad can you make this? And I've said with the Harry Potter thing a million times in the past. It is a situation where like they're trying to appeal to progressive activists who will never accept this show.
well, even if they do, it's like I would argue that technically they are the vocal minority that they accuse us of being. So
Mhm.
even if they do show up, it's still not going to cover the costs. And so the problem that I think they may run into here is that, let's say I'm playing devil's advocate for a moment because I don't have a horse in this race. I'm not a big Harry Potter fan or purist. I like it, but I don't care about it that much. Let's say that they pull off the unexpected and they actually make a really good show that
Mhm.
people like. You know, if they don't do that, you're going to have diminishing returns as the audience evaporates. And then you're going to have to make a decision of, do we continue to make this show that is losing us money, or do we cancel it and then have to pay out those contracts
Mm.
for the non-production? And that's also going to be significant. That it's a lose-lose proposition. It
And
might have been
I wouldn't be
smarter.
shocked if I wouldn't be shocked if Jake if old Joe Rowling has a kill clause in the contract that they have to pay her out X amount of money for any seasons they don't make, because that's what the Tolkien estate got with Amazon. And that's one of the reasons why they're not canceling Rings of Power, because they would have to pay the Tolkien estate like millions upon millions of dollars for that with no return.
I think it would have been smarter for them, although it may have hurt them in negotiations going forward, if they had just said, we're going to do the first book and get the actors under contract for that, see how it does. Now, it means that if it does well, then you're going to have to pay those actors more to keep them under contract for the remaining seasons. But committing to the entire series, man, that's dangerous. Look what happened
It
to
is.
Game of Thrones. Because now, in this case, it's a different situation because Rowling's books are completed,
Right.
but when you commit to something that's like a 10-year proposition, you have no idea what's going to happen.
Speaking of Game of Thrones, there is a there was a line in the finale of A Night of the Seven Kingdoms that I feel like may have been a shot at George R.R. Martin, or may have been George R.R. Martin in on it as like a tongue-in-cheek thing. He's talking to Dunk is talking to the Laughing Storm, Lionel Baratheon, and he's telling him a story or something like that. And no, I'm sorry, it wasn't him. It was his master, Sir. It wasn't Aaron, was it? It was
No, but I'm Arlen and Pennytree.
Arlen. Yes, Sir Arlen. He's talking to Sir Arlen, and Sir Arlen's telling him a story, and then it looks like he dies.
Oh,
And so he
yeah.
thinks that's it. Like he thinks that's his death. And then Sir Arlen like wakes up and starts telling the story, and he goes, "A true knight always finishes the story." I was like, was that a little shot at George R.R. Martin?
Likely, yep.
But that might have been George R.R. Martin through the show being like, guys, I'm gonna do it. Don't worry. Like, I don't know.
I don't think he has that great a sense of humor about it anymore. If he did, then good on him. But
Look, I know I like rib on George R.R. Martin a lot with this kind of thing. I get it though to an extent, because for every single person that says to me, I really miss the puppet, or when are you gonna go back to the wrestling channel? Like, I want to wring their necks. And George R.R. Martin gets it a billion times worse than me. However, on the flip side here, George R.R. Martin is being paid millions upon millions of dollars for these books. If I was being paid millions upon millions of dollars to go make the wrestling channel, I'd be making the wrestling channel. So
I've got some sympathy for him too, because I think that ultimately what happened to George was he was a victim of his own success. When he thought that he was getting away with writing these books and they were just the books, he said when he was writing them, he was so frustrated with Hollywood. He was so tired of writing scripts for movies and TV shows that ended up getting chopped and edited and changed. He wanted to write something that Hollywood could never produce, like, that had a cast of thousands that would be impossible to film.
mhm.
And he was getting away with it. And he had his dedicated audience that knew about this thing, but it was kind of like his own little secret. It was like being a kid that's getting away with something and you're laughing about it because I've got this thing. But then HBO came knocking and they said, "We think that we can do this." And he said, "You're crazy. You can't. There's no way you can do it." And they said, "Well, we think we can." And then at the start, they pulled it off. And like it or not, George feels the pull to Hollywood. He loves working in that medium. He loves the interviews. He loves all of the attention it gets him.
I think it's also
And
it's seeing your work come to life is fascinating. Because like I've taken a few scenes from the novel that I'm writing and plugged it into, Sora, and actually had it like animate a scene that I had written, and I was just like, this is cool. Like, so there might be that as well.
I agree, but if you're going to make that kind of deal, you have to have creative control, and no studio is going to give that to him, especially because it wasn't finished.
Mhm.
And as it began to deviate, he became more frustrated. And once they got to the point where he didn't have material, all he had was an outline, they had no choice but to go on. His argument was that, well, you can extend the series, you can deal with the stuff that you haven't shown. There's lots of material here. And they're like, we can't just do this on the fly. They had to wrap it up. I understand why they had to wrap it up. But I think that what they did and the reaction to it utterly poisoned Martin after that. I think I'm still convinced this is why he hasn't finished the series.
I wanted to address this comment here by Jared Markham. Says George wanted to be the 21st century Professor J.R.R. Tolkien. I actually think he wanted to be the inverse of J.R.R. Tolkien. J.R.R. Tolkien created this fantasy world where everything was so squeaky clean and prim and proper, and there was good and there was evil, and it was just like, so perfectly encapsulated. But I think that George R. R. Martin was just like, no, man, they crap. And they like, and they bang and like everyone kind of sucks. And like he wanted to create this more realistic, actual like medieval type world. And you don't have other, races like elves and dwarves and like magical creatures. The closest you get are the dragons. And it's very clear they're from a bygone era. So yeah, I think that it is I think he wanted to be the opposite of J.R.R. Tolkien.
I agree. My take has always been that he's the anti-Tolkien, and I think
Yeah.
that it is very specifically an American fantasy. My thesis on this has always been there is in fantasy literature, it's always portrayed as a return to Avalon. It's like you want to see the fantasy monarchy that brings right and justice to the world and elevates all of its people. But in reality, the feudal system was terrible for the common people, because what happens is you have these people who were essentially warlords who owned a kingdom because they were able to defend its territories by raising uh, their banners, as they would put it in Game of Thrones,
Mhm. Calling the
mercena-
bannerman.
mercenary armies to be able to defend their territories. And when the monarch dies, while technically there's a line of succession, nobody honors it. Everybody goes to war, and it's terrible for everybody involved. This was George as an American reminding people that actually that feudal system that you idolize is really, really bad. And there's a reason that we don't have that anymore.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think he really wanted it to be like, guys, it sucks to be alive at this time. That's why, like, there's so much stuff of like, Sir Duncan crapping on a tree. Like, it's
That
it's just
was
like,
unexpected.
yeah, did not like, I almost turned the show off because it's in like
Yeah.
the first like few minutes, and I was just like, I don't want to see this. And
Well,
like I almost turned it off, and then I was like, no, power through, because like I knew like X-Wing really liked the show and stuff like that. So I was like, I trust X-Wing. And
I,
then
I I watched that first episode with my parents, and so they were sitting there next to me, and my dad looked over at me and said, "Well, that was unexpected." And it's like weirdly, the question that I had was like, "Did they wait for him to need to take a crap, or is this VFX? Did somebody pay to like
you
CGI?"
imagine like you spend 6 months animating this guy's pasty white ass sticking out from behind the tree and just crap coming out of it.
It's like you got to think. It's like normally I would think, no, they just did this natural, and the guy's getting paid for this. And then I thought, but then you got to take into account the lighting, the time of day. So many factors have
I
to come together.
feel like if he was actually crapping, like if it was real, like I feel like at that point,
There would be health concerns.
like I feel like it's a health concern, and I feel like it's a like even though it kind of falls outside the jurisdiction of the FCC because it is streaming or it's subscription based. I feel like it falls into a different rating at that point.
I don't know, man. It's like, but I gather it's like maybe this is why we have AI, because
But like he's doing
nobody.
it like a horse too, like with the butt like in the air. Like, oh my god, it was so gross. I never want to see that scene again. When I rewatch this show, I will cover my eyes during that scene because I just don't want to see it again.
But I mean, thankfully, the advantage of powering through it is that at least for that first episode for me, it's a really good show.
It is. It is. And then in like it was either the second or third episode, you get a flashback of Sir Arlen, and he just walks out naked as the day he was born. And I mean, it's like to his knees. Like it's like what they say Liam Neeson is. And I was just like, like honestly, the thing that made me like hesitate was Ryan Kinnell told me that like there was like a scene with like a really long, rod. And I was just like, I don't know if I want to watch that. and but finally, like everybody was praising it so much, I was like, I gotta watch this show. And yeah.
Just for curiosity's sake, if nothing else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I was just like, man, like you didn't need to do that. Like you didn't need to have a baguette hanging there, and then he pees too, like and you just see it. And I'm just like, oh God. Like it was so vile and gross. Oh, like I don't.
You're giving me all the real spoilers here. It's
Yeah.
like this is the stuff I got to look forward to.
Yeah. But I mean, the show is, but it says something about how good the show is.
Yeah,
That like I didn't care. Like I'm just like, this show is just so good. Like this character, and I think you might have said it on a previous stream, but like the thing that makes Dunk such a unique character in this world is that he is just purely good.
yeah, he's the only good person in the Seven Kingdoms in 100 years, and
Yeah.
and there's a lot of people. It's like if I remember right, Brienne of Tarth is like descended from him,
Mhm.
and there's some other folks that are descended from him. So he does weave into the history,
Yeah.
but I think the key to the show, at least as far as I have seen so far, is that they perfectly cast him, and that was the big question mark: is can you get somebody that can portray this character correctly? And
He
boy, howdy did
plays him
they!
with such a humble innocence, and I love it. Like somebody played they showed from the rap party. He actually got up and he like sang at the rap party. And I think he sang New York, New York. And I was just like, man, the juxtaposition between this guy getting up and singing like this and Pedro Pascal at the rap party for The Last of Us, licking the rainbow rod and dancing about, like it's just night and day here. But that's what I think is like incredible, because I mean, I don't think it's a spoiler, but basically, like, he looks at the Targaryen princes, right? He looks at Egg's brothers, and one of them is a drunken lout, and the other one is just a a sociopath. Essentially, he is the flip of the coin, as they say. When a Targaryen is born, the gods flip a coin, and all of Westeros holds its breath. Because he's insane, and I think he looks at it and he's just like, I have to teach this boy so that he doesn't turn into them. Because if he stays with his parents, if he stays with his father, he's going to turn into one of these two extremes.
So we are heavily into spoilers now, folks.
Well,
But
no, I mean, Egg is his squire. Like, it's, I think like that's just kind of the mindset.
but the thing, it's interesting to me, Dunk in particular, because part of what makes him work is he's so humble. He doesn't think of himself as being necessarily greatly intelligent. He's not a man of means. He doesn't have training. He has this desire in him to be more than what he thinks of himself as, and he doesn't realize that he has what he needs because he has that heart, and he demonstrates it. There are two scenes really in the story that stand out to me. One is that first night when they're going to sleep for the night and they see the falling star,
Mm.
and Egg is telling him that if you see it, that you get luck from it, and they're discussing the fact that they're probably the only ones looking at it, and he says, so the luck is ours alone then. And that gives him a little bit of hope after a very disappointing day, that he feels like maybe there is a chance for me in this after all.
Yeah.
And the other is the big scene in the arena when he's basically yelling to the crowd, "Are there no true knights among you?" And that just sends a
Is there no
jolt of
bravery left in Westeros? Like, I was just going to point that scene out. Have you seen that scene?
I've seen it in the trailers and stuff, but
Oh,
I know
okay.
it from the
It's,
story. It
I mean,
is
it's a phenomenal scene.
it's a lightning bolt down your spine, because it's like, yes, this is what a true man is. And that is something that has been so lacking in all of our storytelling. Is you want to see positive masculinity? This is positive masculinity.
Like, why? Like, you know what we need, honestly? A Star Wars thing like this, where it's just one Jedi in the Old Republic and his apprentice, and it's maybe like a big lunk kind of a Jedi who is trying to just teach his apprentice how to be a good, or even like in the Dark Times, it's a Jedi who survived the Purge, and he comes across this force sensitive youth and he trains him, but he's just training him to be a good guy, not necessarily training him to fight the Empire or anything like that. Like, that's the kind of thing we need. We need like a grounded personal story like that. And a
It
story
goes back.
rooted in masculinity, I think, because masculinity has been devoid, like completely taken out of Star Wars since Mandalorian season 2.
Yeah, it all goes back to character, and this is why I think that this is why Lucasfilm should be scaling back the budgets, is they got so addicted to spectacle and to always raising the stakes. It's like the stakes can be tremendous even if they're personal. In fact, in many cases, it's better if they're just at the personal level, because you're dealing with somebody's soul now, not the fate of the galaxy. The galaxy will take care of itself eventually. When you're dealing with the personal stakes of what a person is feeling and dealing with in their everyday lives, that invites the audience to connect, because everybody has to deal with their own stuff. And sometimes it feels insurmountable. Sometimes it feels like the universe itself is against you. But if you keep pressing on, if you continue, if you strive, and you do so honestly, rewards will come.
That's the thing. Like, Star Wars got away from like positive masculine role models. It got away from, I'm doing this because it's what's right, and it just got into this modern nihilism, this female empowerment nonsense crap that Star Wars was never about. And it takes like a real, and that's why, like, I don't think Night of the Seven Kingdoms, if this had come out 15 years ago, would have been as much of a cultural phenomenon. But it is a feast among, in a time of famine. And I think that's why people are just like, oh my gosh, like it is a tall glass of ice cold water in the middle of the desert.
Well,
And yes,
I
it's
don't.
just water, might not even be clean water, but at the end of the day, like, it's water. And
I don't think Luke becoming disillusioned with what happened in the galaxy is necessarily a bad plot turn. In fact, if I had written the sequels, I probably would have done something similar. But the difference is that where Luke condemned the prequel era Jedi and essentially said there's no point to this, it's endlessly cyclical. The Jedi and the Sith are causing all the turmoil in the galaxy, and thus they need to end the cycle. The way that you actually do the critique of the prequel era Jedi is you recognize what they did wrong and you correct it. You build something better. You build something that is in the form of its intended purpose, and you show how that perseverance and adherence to those principles and values leads to a better universe.
You mean exactly what they did in the EU?
Yeah, yeah. And then, of course, the other problem is that rather than bringing back the Sith, they brought back the Empire, which made no sense whatsoever. If you're going to have the Jedi, you have to have the Sith. And this is it's the weird place where they were slavishly adherent to what George wanted because he saw bringing balance to the Force being the elimination of the Sith. If you want to continue to have Star Wars storytelling, you have to figure out a way to bring the Sith back in.
Yep. I mean, look, it is always it always comes back to the Empire, and that's the thing that I can't stand. I hate that we're just like Mando and Grogu trailer. I'm like, really? We're back to the Empire again? Like, can we please have another antagonist?
I'm actually okay with it in this time period because it's still 5 to 7 years post Return of the Jedi, and you should still be dealing with Imperial warlords. Now, if they name drop Warlord Zinj, I'll be very happy, but I don't expect them to do that.
So, I mean, like, but in Mandalorian, you do have an opportunity to not have like galactic stakes. Like, this could just be a contained story that takes place in the underworld, which is the underworld of Star Wars is ripe for the picking. It is something that people are very interested in. I mean, remember that video game 1313?
Mm-hmm.
People were very excited about that. And
this is why I lost my thought. Go ahead. Sorry, I just totally slipped out of my mind.
People were very excited about 1313. You actually had an opportunity to tell a good underworld story with the Book of Boba Fett, and they just didn't do it.
That was the point I was going to make. That's the thing that slipped out of my mind, is that's what was such a criminal thing about the Book of Boba Fett, is that the way that they started that off with the coda at the end of the season 2 finale, with him coming into Jabba's palace, killing Bib Fortuna, sitting on the throne, that is his Boba Fett as Conan moment. And you had to deliver on that. It's like he could have been the boss of an underworld, and instead they made him want to be a small town mayor who's just good to the people. It's like, this is Boba Fett.
He should have been feeding people to that Rancor, like 100%. He should have been running a criminal empire. It should have been about setting up the smuggling lines. It should have been about you could have done The Sopranos. You could have done Star Wars Sopranos.
I am surprised they have not renamed the Fire Spray Patrol craft to the Emancipator 1, because that seems like what they really want to do here. It's like Disney is so uncomfortable with allowing villains to be villains. They have to have their villains be understandable and sympathized with and redeemable. It's like, sometimes you just want a bad guy. Sometimes you want just a genuinely bad guy. And Disney will not give that to you.
And like with Boba Fett, you could have had, you could have had him forming this criminal empire. You could have made him a Tony Soprano or Walter White-like character where he's, building up this huge conglomerate. He's being ruthless. And you juxtapose that with the lessons he learned from his father. And whether or not do I want to become my father? I'm literally a clone of my father. Do I want to be my father, or do I want to be something else? And is it too late for that?
Well, I think the way that you sell it with Boba Fett is you do the Carmen Falcone argument, which is that, yes, I'm a criminal, but I'm a principled criminal, and I am actually keeping order where chaos exists because the government's not doing its job. If you take out the criminal element, you'll have chaos in the streets because there's nobody to maintain control.
Look, in a world in which the mafia existed, which is not this world because there is no such thing as the mafia, but in those worlds, you had these mob guys who basically ran these neighborhoods, and the people in those neighborhoods, you couldn't say a bad word about these guys to them because they took care of them. They made sure the neighborhood was provided for, and that is and they probably broke a few noses and legs and other assorted things to make it happen. That's what Boba Fett should have been doing. And yeah, it was just like, then we got to have the neutrinos in there, and he's got to constantly be having a bath. And oh, by the way, we're doing Last of the Mohicans with him. Like it was just way too much. Like they were like, let's make the Tuscans relatable. I'm like, no, the Tuscans are terrible. That's the point of the Tuscans.
I actually didn't mind that part because I kind of liked his time with the Tuscans, but they still misused it. They still did it wrong. And it's like, okay, what do you do now? It's like Book of Boba Fett in some ways is more offensive to me than Obi-Wan because there is a lot in the Book of Boba Fett I like. There's individual scenes that I think this is great, but they completely misunderstood the character of Boba Fett.
You know what? The Tuscan camp that he became a part of should have been a small rebuilding camp that was constantly at odds with the other Tuscan camps in the Dune Sea, because these are the descendants of the camp that Anakin decimated. And they've been rebuilding themselves for years and years and years and trying to reestablish themselves.
Yep, that would make a lot of sense. But it's like then you've got these stupid the whole mod storyline, which went nowhere. And
that's right. I always call them the neutrinos because they're like the neutrinos from Ninja Turtles.
The thing that I hated the most in the finale of the Book of Boba Fett, besides the ridiculous childhood issues with Cad Bane, is they made Boba Fett a terrible strategist. When they're getting up to that final conflict and he's setting up how they're going to supposedly win this conflict, his strategy is awful. It's terrible. And then after all the setup for this whole series, you have Boba Fett riding a Rancor and you make it boring.
Like that should have been the coolest thing that's ever happened.
Yeah, and it was just dumb. And especially when you had the terrible special effects of the giant war droid. It just looked cheap. It looked bad. It was Book of Boba Fett. The only thing redeemable about the Book of Boba Fett is those 2 Mandalorian episodes that they shoved into it.
The other redeeming thing was seeing him get out of the Sarlacc, because that I've wanted to see for forever.
Yep, I agree.
But like there's such a huge plot hole in the Book of Boba Fett, because throughout the entirety of the Book of Boba Fett, he's still injured from being in the Sarlacc, and so he has to constantly go into the bacta tank. And I'm like, why didn't he have to go in the bacta tank when he was with the Tuscans? Why didn't he have to go into the bacta tank during the Mandalorian season 2? Like all of a sudden these injuries are flaring up. Like what is that? Like you can't suddenly be like, oh, he's really hurt from being in the Sarlacc, so he has to go in this thing, and that we're going to use that as a vehicle for him to go. And then like things like he gets jumped by that Wookiee, which was actually another cool looking character that they could have, like Boba Fett with a fierce Wookiee sidekick. I'm in. Like you have me at that, but they have him fight him while he's half naked. And he gets his butt kicked, and the mods have to beat him.
Yeah, it was, and that was actually something where they could have shown. It's like, because that character, Black Chrysanthemum, comes from the comic books, and they had finally taken something from the comic books and put it into a live action show, and it actually looked pretty good. But again, they just whiffed on their opportunity, and again, it comes down to nothing that Disney produces has an edge. Every time they start to walk up to something with an edge, they get skittish about it and they back away. Look at Kylo Ren.
Andor had an edge.
It's the only thing that has, and that is solely because of Tony Gilroy.
Yeah. Well, Tony Gilroy has been shooting his mouth off for the last week.
He has been. This is going to be a weird position where I actually somewhat agree with him, though probably not in the way that you think. I just think that he has made a show and a movie without understanding who he's actually critiquing. He's got it reversed. And this is the problem with a lot of people, is like, you have to ask yourself, who was it that was censoring people? Who was it that was restricting your freedoms? Who was it that was not respecting your bodily autonomy? I don't think it was our side. Which side does that sound like?
There was another thing that came out recently where I was just like, oh, okay, so this is about like progressives being evil, and like everybody was like, what? And I'm like, no, like look, and I don't remember what it was. I wish I could think of it right now. It'll come to me later on, I'm sure. But I was like, this is 100% like
Was it Plurbius?
Pluribus. No, I don't think so. That show started out so great, and by the end of it I was just like, oh, I'll write this again. Like,
Oh.
well, so it starts off amazing, and the concept of it is so fascinating, and then we get to the point where like the episodes just start dragging, like to fill in time, and I'm just like, oh, all right, I don't like this. and they ended on a cliffhanger, and it's going to take apparently more than 2 years to make. So, but I will say, before we close, the one thing that I'm very excited about this week, and we'll see if it's any good or not, Scrubs comes back tomorrow night.
Well, I never watched it, so more power to you. I hope that it's what you want it to be.
Scrubs, look, anyone that watches my videos and sees the amount of Scrubs clips that I put into it, Scrubs is my favorite like sitcom of all time. And I'm excited to see it come back, but I'm also terrified of it coming back.
I was going to ask, do you think they can recapture lightning in the bottle?
I'm worried they're going to woke it up because they've already like removed episodes from like the streaming thing because of, you know, modern sensibilities and whatnot. So I'm a little concerned about that. But other than that, I don't like we saw like him go to Dr. Cox doesn't call him by a girl's name when he sees him, which like Dr. Cox always calls him by a girl's name. Like it's a different girl's name each time. But so when he sees him in the trailer, he says something like, just dynamite there, Scooter. And I'm like, oh no, that's not, you're supposed to call him a girl's name. Like, yes, he does call him Scooter once in the show, but that's because the janitor decides that his nickname is Scooter. And he said, it's going to catch on. Just wait and see. And then Dr. Cox is like, I'll see you later, Scooter. And then it cuts to the janitor doing a river dance. Also, we don't know if the janitor is in this. And the janitor is the backbone. Like, he's the comedy backbone. Same with Kelso. We don't know if about janitor or Kelso, but so we will see. But I am very, very excited. We just, I've been having my wife watch Scrubs from beginning to end, and we just finished it 2 nights ago.
I hope it turns out to be everything you want it to be. Good luck.
I hope so. But guys, we've got to end. Oh, we got a couple more super chats, and then we got to send you over to the pro show. Let's see. Bookstore Thor for $2 says, if you could buy an IP from WB, what would you get? On DC. Yeah, I think just in general DC, or if one IP from that, Superman. What about you, Lauren? Lauren? Is Lauren frozen? Lauren might be frozen, guys. Yep, Lauren's frozen. All right. So I'll handle this. Tennille the 10th for $2. Either of you fans of Dan Abnett, the author? There you are.
Sorry, I could hear you. You couldn't hear me.
No, you were frozen. Going back to that, if you could buy an IP from WB, what would you get?
Harry Potter, because I think that's where the money is.
Probably. And either of you fans of Dan Abnett? I've actually never heard of Dan Abnett.
Yes.
You are? Okay.
Yeah, Abnett and Lanning were the guys who basically revived Guardians of the Galaxy. He wrote incredibly snappy dialogue. He's also written quite a bit for Warhammer 40K. Great author, has great sensibilities and a great sense of comedic timing. So yes, absolutely.
Awesome. All right, guys, we are going to send you to the pro show right now with WW Pro. We are going to you'll be sent over there automatically. The intro, I believe, is already underway. So I'll see you over there. I'll be on the pro show today. Lauren, are you on it today?
Not that I know of, unless somebody sends me a message and asks me to join up.
Okay, well, I'll see you guys over there. I'll also be on the HCast later today at 4 p.m. And Lauren and Apollo tonight. What do you got tonight, Lauren?
We're covering the cinema of 1996, and so I'm waiting for people to submit their lists, and we'll see how it goes.
Awesome. And guys, also, I've got a video coming out later today on the Wonder Man ratings. They're terrible, but Wonder Man was actually a good show. So there's a little bit of conversation to be had there. And, make sure to subscribe to M4 Empire Gaming. Thank you very much. From all of us here at the M4 Empire, I thank you for your attention, and we'll catch you in the next one.
They said we'd never last, just just a moment, just a flash. But empires aren't built overnight, they're forged in war and lit by fight.